Hello, and thanks for joining us on the People's Counsel. I'm Prince George's County Council Chair Tom Dernoga, and we're here to talk about how the council is working for you and serving this community. And we'll tell you about legislation that will impact you as a county resident. I'm joined today by our council's Senior Director of Communication, Lindsay Watts.
It's great to be here, Chair Dernoga. And this is really a new day for the Prince George's County Council. We had new members that were sworn in just this past December. And the council even has a new name, which is the People's Council. Can you tell me about that name?
Well, this council is dedicated to hearing from the views of our people. And that hasn't always traditionally been the case. And I've been around the county government for 30 years, around the county council for 20 years. And one of the things that people have complained about and been frustrated is you can come down to the county council for a hearing, but you don't always get a listening. And it's the listening that matters. So we're dedicated to making sure that the people feel included, that they know that their views have been heard, and that we're going to try to do things that are more of interest to the public at large. And I think we're demonstrating that we've done that. You know, one of the things I used to say is it's one thing to be transparent when you're cutting ribbons, opening farmers markets and that kind of stuff. It's another thing to be transparent when you're doing things that might be controversial. In my experience with prior councils, and not just here, but in other counties around the state, elected officials don't like to talk about those controversial things if they can avoid it. And we're dedicated to making sure that the people are fully engaged in the conversation, regardless of what the conversation is.
So the council is called the People's Council, but viewers may have noticed the name of the show is the People's Counsel, Counsel, like a lawyer, which is a specific reference to you. Why are you the People's Counsel?
It's historical, I would say. So I was surprisingly elected in a surprise special election back in 2001 and 2. And I had to close up my law practice. I had a solo law practice, and I had to figure out within 1 week how to become a council member. And I said, the best thing I could do is be the lawyer for my constituents. So I became their lawyer in Upper Marlboro. So I approached everything as if every one of my constituents was my client, and how would I represent them? And over time, I used my legal skills to either question what was going on, how does this affect our people, is this legally valid? So I've been known to challenge park and planning, Office of Law, county council attorneys, that type of thing. And I provide free advice, not legal advice worth, but you paid for it, to citizens, other council members. And one thing I did learn is don't be your own lawyer. Our council lawyers convinced me of that, but I do use my legal skills to try to make sure that my constituents, and frankly all county residents, are getting the best representation they can get.
So people should know they have an attorney in Largo, in you.
Yes, and absolutely. Sometimes that's annoying to other people, but I think for my constituents, they've been pleased with the results.
Yeah, you've been on this council for a very long time, more than 2 decades now.
Well, sort of. I mean, we have term limits. And one of the things I did as the People's Council was I helped create term limits back in the 90s. But I served 9 years when I was first elected, 2 terms plus the special election year. And then I had to leave. So I've been around for 20 years, but in between, I was out of office for 8 years. So I think I'm on my 14th year on the council.
14th year. Anything you would want people to know about why the council now is different?
Well, it goes back, to, in my mind, to the People's Council. Jolene Ivey, Councilwoman Ivey and I, we served together the past 4 years, and we just felt that the council needed to go in a new direction. So we decided to try to get people elected who would be more in sync with our thinking and more open to public involvement and truly listening to what the public wants to see happen. So we looked at who was running for office, and we got behind people, and we encouraged other people to do so, and we brought a team in. We were successful. In my view, that type of pro-citizen, pro-people team has never existed on the council since I've been around over 30 years. We have a council majority. And then after the election last year, the six of us started meeting every 2 weeks to come up with an agenda that we thought represented the views of the people of this county. And since we have 6 people from different parts of the county with different backgrounds but similar philosophy, it made for a great endeavor to come in December with an agenda ready to go.
We want to hear now from one member of that team that you referenced, Councilmember Crystal Orietta, who's talking about her legislation surrounding tobacco shops and also rent stabilization, a really important new measure that you definitely need to know about if you're renting here in Prince George's County.
This is a bill I'm really excited about because what it does is stabilize rents at 3% for 12 months to really stop the bleeding. We had so many people that were in dire need, and we understand that rent stabilization is a huge topic that we're really going to have to dive into. So it allows us the space and opportunity to do that.
What did you hear from the community that made you realize there was such a need for this?
We had over 100 people come to the council to testify between committee and the public hearing about how they were experiencing 20%, 50% increases overnight.
I have lived here for 4 years and have never received such an enormous increase.
Our most recent rental increase of an additional $400, $500 is beyond comprehension.
My rent was raised $800 with a 23-day notice.
We know a lot of our seniors on a fixed income. We have a lot of single parents that are just struggling, working 2-3 jobs to keep a roof over their head. And so we realized that this was an emergency and something that we had to address immediately.
At that hearing, we heard from so many people with those needs, but we also heard from some who were against a cap on rents. What do you say to the notion that this would prevent landlords from investing in the county?
I think anytime we look at regulating an industry, we hear the same thing. When we talk about healthcare, we heard the same thing. We can't look at regulating healthcare, it'll cripple the industry. But industries survive regulation. And so this is just one of those times where the industry had space. They stepped over what they should have done, because talking about 20, 50% increases is not just. And so as a government entity, it's our responsibility to look at it. And that's why we're taking the time that we're putting a work group together to look at it, because we know we have to look at both sides and come up with a permanent solution.
Because this is expiring in a year, like you mentioned. So what are the things that are happening in the meantime?
Right, so we just launched our work group. So we'll be working over the next year, taking recommendations from all sides. So you have people that represent the industry, developers, people that work in the academic side, tenants even represented, advocacy organizations. And so we're going to dive into all of the possibilities of what permanent rent stabilization can look like, and then hopefully introduce a permanent rent stabilization bill.
Another bill you passed will put new restrictions on tobacco stores. What will that do?
Yeah, so this was probably the number one issue I heard on the doors, is there's an oversaturation of tobacco stores, liquor stores in the community. And so what this bill did is said, okay, one, no longer could we have more tobacco stores coming in to commercial spaces. They would be moved into industrial zones. It'd make it so they could no longer be 24 hours, and then regulate that annoying LED lighting that we see across the county and certain communities. And so the goal is really to change the development and the feel, especially inside of the Beltway. We heard that there was really a difference between how communities were treated. If you drive inside the Beltway, you can see 4 tobacco stores right next to each other. You might drive somewhere else in the county and you don't see something like that. And so why is it that certain communities that are predominantly of a lower economic status oversaturated with things that harm them, like tobacco stores, like liquor stores? And why haven't we, as elected body, done anything about it? And so one thing that was really important to me when I stepped into this role was to tangibly change what the community would look like.
Anything else you want to add about either of these topics?
Is that we really want a robust package of bills. So this isn't the end of the legislation that we're going to see around tenant rights, around economic development, around beautification. It's going to be piece by piece legislation that builds a whole new Prince George's County that we're really looking forward to seeing.
We'll be back in just a minute talking about a property tax credit for going green.
Jason, let's go see your room.
Here are AARP top tips on caregiver preparedness during coronavirus. Form a team that can help with caregiving tasks. Take an inventory of essential supplies in your loved one's home. Make a list of the care recipient's medications. Schedule regular calls to fight isolation. Finally, take care of yourself too. Follow the Centers for Disease Control's guidelines for coronavirus safety. For more caregiving tips, go to aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. Chair Dernoga, I want to talk to you about a credit that's available for residents that has to do with solar and geothermal energy.
Yes, I think this is something that we want more of our residents to take advantage of. Now, it's been around for a while, and actually, Eric Olson, council member, who's on the council now, he also came back after sitting out for 8 years, and he and I put this credit together back in, I think, 2007. And basically, residents, if they do a geothermal energy project for the house, or more likely a solar, put solar panels on the roof, they can get a $5,000 county property tax credit. And when we first adopted it, the county would only spend $250,000 a year on it. So there was a long waiting list. So a couple years ago, I helped lead the movement to extend that, so it's doubled. But if you want to go green, people need to remember this tax credit still exists, and it's a tremendous benefit to them. Helps reduce the cost of getting solar or geothermal. It also applies for people who lease their solar panels. You can get a credit for that too. And it makes it more affordable, and it will reduce your energy costs. So you win. It's a win-win. So you can't go wrong. And I just want to make sure that people know that this still exists and they take advantage of it. As part of the county climate action plan, we need to see more solar use in the county, and we want to support our residents that they can do it themselves and save the money on the panels or the geothermal, but also save money on their energy. I mean, no one wants to be spending more than they have to.
Right. Is this something that you've taken advantage of?
Oh, yes. I took advantage of it a long time ago. I had solar panels. It was very beneficial, and I got the federal tax credit, and I got a state grant. Now, I have a newer house, and that has geothermal. So I signed up, but I'm on the waiting list.
Okay.
I haven't gotten the credit, so I'm on the waiting list with everybody else. But hopefully we'll maybe increase the budget for that and make that list go quicker. But if you get on the list, you'll get the credit, and it will save you both ways.
That's great. It's great there's so much interest in the county that there is a list of people that want to take advantage.
I think when we decided to up the credit or the budget amount, there's like a 10-year waiting list. So
wow.
So we've kind of cut that in half as more people have gotten on the list. You'll be on the list, but I want to be pushing in next year's budget that we expand it beyond the amount of funds that are being put towards it so we can get people moving on the list.
Yeah, that would be great. I want to talk about the people's agenda. This is a specific agenda this new council has laid out. I'm going to read through it. Ensure transparency in our government, increase services for residents, preserve our green space and protect our environment, support smart and quality development for our community, support working families, increase opportunities for local minority businesses and nonprofits, and bring access to quality health care to our communities. Can you talk to me about this agenda and why these are the items that are so important?
Well, like I said earlier, we met every 2 weeks as a group from like July through December last year, coming up with this agenda. And it's not just these items. Under these items, there was 5 to 10 specific items of things that we wanted to accomplish. So we've got a whole 4-year game plan that we want to roll out. And each council member came with their background, the things that they knew were important for their district, for the county, and that's how we put these 7 topics together. That's how I was created, but now it's implementation. And we heard earlier, Crystal Uriata has been pushing the rent stabilization. That was one of the key components. That was one of our major items that we wanted to deal with. Under supporting working families, increasing services, we need to make housing and health care more affordable. We've passed a senior assistance bill. County executive didn't fund it, but we will be back next year trying to push that. In terms of health, we passed Vice Chair Bleguet's Healthy Restaurants bill. Once again, the county executive.
No funding, I think, for that one. I think that's something that we are hoping to get funded
next
sometime.
year.
Yes.
Yeah, trying to remember, what got funded was the security cameras for residential properties. So we were able to convince the county executive to do that. So we're looking at making people more safe in their residences. So these are the types of items that we had on our list that we're working through. Funding's always an issue. We're hopeful we'll be more successful. Ms. Uriata also spoke to some of the things we did about tobacco shops. I pushed along with them, limiting the more newer gas stations. Because one of the things that we've all noticed is that you look at these zoning cases we have, and there's tobacco shops, car washes, consolidated storage, more gas stations. And, as we're trying to go green, why do you need more gas stations? I mean, we don't have enough. But these are things that people complain about affecting their neighborhood. So we're looking from an environmental standpoint and from just a community impact standpoint, things that we can do to make people's lives better. As a group, we're working on, I don't think we've had any big successes yet, but one of the things that we're really focused on is working families. And that deals with getting the county to spend more of its funding on capital projects that involve project labor agreements. So union projects. State and county government do not do as much with labor as they should. And we're very adamant about this because this provides good wages, good benefits, and job protection for working class people. And our county is full of working class people. And we don't feel that county residents get enough opportunity for these jobs. We get people from out of county, out of state, and a lot of times if they're not through a project labor agreement, the pay is not good, there's limited benefits, and very often there's wage theft. And we've had that problem come up. People might have seen the stories recently about the school public-private partnership having problems with wage theft through a subcontractor. And these are the kind of things that we think project labor agreements can help avoid. And just in general, we're looking at ways to help our working families here in the county. And then obviously there's the environmental items on the list, which Eric Olson and I probably came up with a lot of those. And we've done a number of things on the land use side so far this year to promote smart growth. We've turned back some projects that have been previously approved in the Anything Goes Council from prior years and said, these are not helping our county residents with their communities, they're not helping our environment. We actually, as a county, over the last 10 to 15 years have lost more tree coverage than any other county in the state. That should not be the case. And it's incumbent on the county government, and at the moment on us, to reverse that. And these are the types of things that we're committed to doing. But like I said, under each of these 7 topics, there's 5 to 10 items that we have on our list to try to tackle.
We're coming up on another short break.
Okay, well, up next, we'll tell you about a bill that will make housing more accessible for people with disabilities here in Prince George's County.
Each year, there are more than a dozen significant tropical and winter storms that threaten the East Coast. So chances are there will be more hurricanes and blizzards near here again. And between school, sports, and social lives, chances are you won't be with your kids when it happens. Will they know what to do? Ready.gov/kids has all the educational tools and information to make the conversation easy. When the time comes, chances are they'll feel prepared, not scared. So talk with your family today.
For all of life's poison risks, there's Poison Help. Poison Help is a free 24/7 hotline.
Hello, Poison Help?
That answers all of your poison questions. At home,
I might have taken too much medication.
at work,
I think I've breathed in chemical fumes.
and on the go.
They ate a mushroom. What do I do?
With expert guidance and treatment advice in over 100 languages. When poison happens, we're here for you. Just call Poison Help. 1-800-222-1222.
Welcome back to the People's Council. We're going to hear now from Councilmember Jolene Ivey talking about her universal design bill.
Universal design is a bill that's really going to open up everyone's lives. It really will help people actually age in place, because developers, when they are building housing in the future, are going to have to incorporate many universal design features. And what that means is things that will help people who have mobility issues, whether they're in wheelchairs or walkers, or maybe they broke their foot. You know, whatever their issues are, they're going to be able to get into the home easily. They're going to be able to move around the home, and they'll have everything they absolutely need on the first floor. So that way, as you age or as you have mobility issues for whatever reason, and most people are going to have some kind of problem over the course of their lives, it'll make it so that there's zero entry, so people can roll in if they need to into the home, and they'll be able to use a restroom on the first floor. They'll be able to have the kitchen easily accessible, and in the bathroom, the walls will have reinforcements so that if you need to put the grab bars in place, then it's really easy to do. So it's an exciting change for Prince George's County and really for the region, and we're going to be somewhat of a leader in the country.
At the hearing for the bill, we heard a lot of compelling testimony.
Just 2 years ago, I became a triple amputee and sepsis survivor.
You see, when I was in the hospital doing rehab, many of us who go through that can tell you about those who had nowhere to go. Once they had their accident, they didn't have the opportunity to return to their homes.
Can you talk about the need for this in the county?
So many people live in Prince George's County are aging, and we talk all the time about the need to let people age in place. Well, we talk about it, but what are we really doing about it? And this will have a real impact on their lives.
At the hearing, you told a story about a boyfriend of yours who was never able to come meet your family, right?
Right. Well, when I was in college, I had a boyfriend who was in a wheelchair, and he never came to my house. You know, he never once came to my house. He never met my parents. And that was just because there were stairs leading into my house. It really let me know, even back then, how important it is to people's lives to be able to access other spaces other than their own home. Nobody wants to be in their house the rest of their lives. Most people want to be able to get out and go places. Now, this bill doesn't do everything I want it to do. This was definitely a start. So this is something that had been introduced some years ago on the council, and it really did not advance. But I thought it was so important that this year with the new council, I talked to my colleagues and they saw the same thing that I saw. And so they supported my efforts. I worked with the building industry, MBIA. I worked with the advocates for those who want people to be able to age in place, with the disability community, with the county exec's office. And everybody had to give a little. Nobody got everything they wanted, but we definitely have made an advance in home building. Right now, with this bill, it allows 50% of homes to not be built this way going forward with a waiver, whether it's because of the terrain or whatever other challenges they're facing as builders. So it won't be every single home. And we had to give up on townhouses for the zero entry, but many of the other features will be included. A lot of times when people are buying houses, they're not looking into the future. They're just figuring, well, we're just going to live here a couple of years. It doesn't matter. Well, heck, next week you can be in a car accident. You know, anything can happen to your parents or anyone you know. You want them to be able to visit you, and you want to be able to have access to your home and to be able to stay there. I myself had foot surgery earlier this year. Glenn would have had a hard time carrying me up the stairs. If we didn't have a bathroom on the first floor, I would have been stuck upstairs the whole time until, you know, after he got me up there, until my foot was healed. So, you know, just thinking forward ahead of time, making things easier for people, I think it's going to have a real impact on our community.
The People's Counsel has introduced a lot of legislation like the Universal Design Bill in accordance with the agenda that we went over. What are you most proud of?
Well, it's funny. Some politicians and people around government, they look at what we're doing and they complain that we're controversial, we're pushy, we're arrogant, we're moving too fast. And some of that's true. But what really I'm proud of is the people come up to us all the time and say, we love what you're doing, keep it up. And that's who we're working for, so we're going to keep it up.
Yeah, I know we hear a lot from council members about hearing about certain issues as they are door knocking, as they were door knocking during the campaign, and really wanting to incorporate the true needs and concerns of people in this community in the legislation that is introduced. So that is definitely a great thing. There's been a lot of media coverage of many of these bills that we're talking about, but is there anything that comes to mind that perhaps has not gotten a lot of coverage that you would want people to be aware of?
Well, yes, something very important, but it's not a bill. It's really just good government. And so I want to say something just positive that people need to understand about the county. And this has been true for a number of years, but it's very important right now, which is, generally speaking, the county's in really strong financial health. Now, paradoxically, we have a reputation for being a county government that's underfunded because most of our revenue, or a lot of our revenues, comes from residential property taxes, and that puts a burden on our residents. So we don't want to raise taxes on the residents. So that leaves us underfunded. But at the same time, we have a AAA bond rating. We have strong reserves. So people don't need to feel that the county government is on shaky ground. So that's something that I think is a positive message that everybody ought to understand. Now we're concerned, as everybody is, now that COVID money is dried up. Projections that state and county estimators produced last year are not as rosy as people would like. So we may have some budget hurdles coming up in the next year or two, but the good news is we have strong reserves. The county government of the last few years, the county executive, the county council, has done their job, and we're going to continue doing that job. So I think people shouldn't get too concerned if they hear about potential budget woes. We'll figure them out.
That is definitely good information, because I think people, with all of the news about the economy, could be a little uncertain about, well, what is the state of our county? But the state of the county is strong, and things are looking good. That's what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. Now, I think it's always in the interest of some politicians, like, oh, the sky's falling, we need to do this, get rid of trim or whatever. But we just need to stay the course and spend money wisely and not be wasteful. Yeah. And that's one of the things that the People's Counsel is dedicated to, is oversight. A lot of councils are afraid to provide too much oversight of the county executive and their departments because county executives get annoyed and they have a lot of power. But we think proper oversight is critical. That is one of our major roles, and we intend to continue providing oversight, particularly on the financial side.
Yeah, I think people are glad to hear about that. You want to have that balance in government at all levels.
That's why we're here.
Well, thank you so much. It was really a great conversation. I am looking forward to continuing this conversation in our next episode. We have a lot more to talk about. We're going to get a little bit more into your history, your past, and your long tenure on this council. But it's been wonderful to speak with you today.
Well, thank you so much, Lindsay. And thanks for joining us here on the People's Counsel, where we're putting people first. You can follow us on our pages on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, now known as X, Threads, and Lord knows whatever else is out there, so you can get our latest updates. But also, please subscribe to our weekly newsletter, Council Connection, and see you next time.
you.